Mindy is the supervising book conservator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Watson Library. She's also a librarian, a preservation librarian, and so much more that I think you've already read about her in her bio. So I think I'm going to share my screen in a moment. So save your questions for either the end or put them in the chat. We welcome them. Thanks for being here. By the way, this is the International Museum of Dinnerware Design in Kingston, New York, and I am Margaret Carney, curator and hostess, I guess, this evening. So I'm gonna share my video, and you will have a delightful visit with Mindy in her home via this video, and then hopefully by the end we will get her live to answer Q&A. So thanks for being here, and here goes the share. Today is March 22nd, and we're here with Mindell Dubansky, and we're really excited today to be talking about Blooks. So Mindy, my first question to you is, what on earth is a Blook?
A Blook, in my mind, the term I've been using for a long time, is something that looks like a book, but is something else that isn't a book. And so that my criteria is simply that it's trying to be a book, but it's not a book. It could be a lot of different things, and that's what I'm going to be showing you today.
Okay, and where did the term Blook come from?
Okay, well, I've been collecting for many decades, and my partner used to encourage me. We would go looking together, and he would buy me things, and we would tell people what we're looking for something that looks like a book, but it isn't. It could be this, it could be that, and it wound up being so many words to say that we just wound up having that as our little pet name for them, our shortcut to just say one word. Blooks, meaning book look. It looks like a book. So that's, I didn't publish anything about this collection for really a couple decades after I began collecting, because it took a really long time to put the collection together and see the scope of the subject. So it's just something I used personally that then when it became time to have my first exhibition, to publish my first catalog, that was when the moment of truth, because I had to make a decision about, all right, am I going to call it, things that look like books and art, or am I going to commit to like what I've always called it? And that's what I wound up doing. And so from there, that's how I refer to them. I hope that's helpful.
And are you the only collector of Blooks?
No, but I don't know that other people call them that. The other collectors that there are probably many collectors, many that I don't know, or people who collect a small part of the subject. I'm really collecting for scope because I really want to define the subject, and I'm interested in its relationship to book history. But other people I know who collected, unfortunately my two best friends who collected, one best friend was a couple, the Heckmans, and they really collected antiquarian books, really beautiful things, rare things, book boxes. And then my other friend, Ian Burke, who was from San Francisco, exclusively collected stone books. Only pretty much American, but also international books, carved from stone, largely in the 19th century to the early 20th century. So that's a very narrow scope, but he had a very large collection of 500 stone books. So all of us collaborated regularly, and we helped each other, and we had lots of wonderful conversations. So now I don't have that, but what I'm noticing since I've had my shows is that a budding group of collectors, young people who might just be collecting something, for example, like exploding books or gag books or a particular type of book. So I don't know anyone who's collecting on this for the same reasons or scope that I am, but I think there are probably other people that are just doing it for themselves rather than for educational purposes, which I'm trying to do.
So, Mindy, my next question is what you do for a living and how that connects to your, it's not a hobby, your obsession with books.
Lifelong love of books and deep, deep belief in the power of the physical book. So this collection, I'm a book conservator and a handbook binder and a printmaker, going backwards through my life. I've always been an artist, and I have always, since a child, experienced, as probably everybody who's watching this video has, the power of being with a book and having and holding a book and experiencing an amazing transformational book and how it changes you. And then I became also a librarian, and when I was in library school, I was kind of shocked, being a book conservator and someone who loves books and cares for books, that the book binding, the physical book, wasn't always so important to people who were working in libraries. They were more interested in the text and in the information. Also, people who were documenting book history, sometimes the bindings would be, descriptions of the bindings would be left out. Not to say there wasn't any of that, because there's plenty of research on the history of bookbinding, but they're usually the finest bookbindings, and that's not what I'm about. So I have a belief that never was affirmed that the physicality of the book was as important as the text. And I had an epiphanal experience one day finding a book object that had a transformational effect on me. And so I suddenly decided to really believe in my own ideas. And then that's when I decided to start the collection, because I kind of wanted to prove, I thought, this was my crazy thinking, but I thought if I eliminated the text and I looked at ways in which people emulated the form of the book, and I followed it through time and space and place, it would tell me about how people feel about books, the physical book, and the importance of that object in culture. So that is the premise of why I collect, the intellectual premise of why I collect, and the kind of spiritual or personal premise of why I collect. But also, it's just, that's all very intense and heavy and wonderful, and that is my, my bedrock. But it's just so enjoyable to find these things and see how what other people thought of. As a bookbinder, I'm very amused by the decisions that the people who made these objects made about what is a book. What they decided to include in their object, what books they were emulating, how they got it right, how they got it wrong, what's important to them in different times, different periods, and different places, what attributes of books were very important to include, always include, or, what aspects of books do people kind of misunderstand. So all that is like a mental game for me, and I really enjoy that aspect of the objects, and I enjoy trying to emulate them. Like I try to make them. If I find one that's really interesting, I can make them, so through the making of them also, or making a model, for example, I also learn a lot about what the artists were thinking.
So what would be the oldest one that either you have or one of your collector friends have?
The oldest one I have is an 18th century Catholic portable altar, in the form of a modeled calfskin binding. And it's a really remarkable object, and I've been trying to find out what I can about it.
So maybe we can see that later.
Yeah, sure.
Plug it in.
Happy to.
So how about, I might ask you questions later on, but how about if you show us a couple of examples, and because this overriding topic of our conversation has to do with unforgettable dinnerware, I think you've managed to cull out a few objects here that have something to do with dining or the kitchen or the dinnerware or something or other. But we'll see some other things, because I know once you see a few things, you're going to want to see some more unusual things. So show us something.
Okay. I would say the second oldest object I have on this table, and it relates to entertainment and food. It's a very precious object, and I believe it's an 18th century tea caddy. And it's a little bit confusing because it looks like it's made from the covers of real books, which it could have been, or partially real books, which it could have been. But the insides of the text block, or what's trying to be the text block, is not actually paper, as was the case with things that are like this that were produced in the early 19th century. Because 18th century books, when they became unpopular in France, were often repurposed. Big sets of books were often repurposed for gift goods and souvenirware, and sort of luxury goods for men's dens or studies or libraries. It might be, I have an example of another one that's a brandy set. in that case, they really just were cut out of the books, repurposed books. But in this case, this object was made purposefully. And this piece here comes off, but I don't want to take it off because it's very fragile. But there is a secret lock behind it. It has,
Wow.
it was locked. So it is a tea caddy. But what's so exceptional about it, and if you can get in there close, is that it has the tea tins, but it has this amazing paper theater, which I have attributed, and it's in my book. I just don't remember it at the moment. The print, which allowed me to kind of help date it. Can you see it?
Yes.
Isn't it
That is
incredible?
stunning.
So it's been fiddled with, and it's probably got some missing pieces.
So they carved out a book to do that? Is
I
that made of book pages?
I don't
or-
think it. No, I said it. In this case, it's not.
Okay.
But it's possible. The covers could have been used. That's hard to say. I haven't studied it that closely. But as I said, the text blocks are not paper. They're constructed from wood and paper. Whereas I'll show you another one. Very similar. If you just saw it, you would think it was very similar, but it's actually much, much, much later. It was produced much later from existing real books, which is this one. And if you look closely at this one, you can see that still has the end caps. It's got the pages. This was like a bunch of books that were cut out and turned into something else, repurposed or altered books, which is something that I really am against, and I don't actively collect. Unless, with exception, and this I made, and that's because I don't want, as a conservator, I don't encourage it, and it upsets me. But this type of book was a very popular. I found an object in I would say then around the 1920s, and I actually found a catalog from Paris that only had objects made from repurposed books in it for the luxury gift market. And this is a very typical one in really great condition.
Was it like a company that did that? Or that
Yes.
Was okay.
Well, there's all kinds. I mean, if you talk about the business of making like book decor, there are businesses that, first of all, it's very inexpensive to make an object if you're making it out of something that's repurposed, right? Because you don't have to make that thing. You don't have to buy the original materials. You're just turning it into something else. So the types of businesses that regularly used repurposed books were this turn of the century gift business. We probably had little businesses that made these things for these companies to sell. Definitely the gag company, the S. Adams company, which is a very popular company that made all the kind of gags that were used, that my generation is used to buying in joke stores, like exploding books and electric shock books and
we might have to see one of those.
You might have to see one of those. They're crazy. They made them out of existing books because, of course, they were practically free. So in this case, I think it was the same situation. These very beautiful books that today we think are very valuable and would, in their original form, be very valuable today, at some point in this period, were a dime a dozen. So somebody thought of making these, and this one is a really nice set, and everything is here, which is nice because very often they're not here. So you can see
that's a cordial set?
It's a cordial set. Isn't that nice?
And do the titles on the books have anything to do with the contents?
This one does, because I think it was made purposefully. It's something like in honor of women. So it's this is really a ladies' entertainment center.
Okay.
But this one now here's a volume 6. These are 3 different, there's a volume 1, I think. These are 3 different books that are, each one's from a set of books, so they don't make any sense to be together.
And how old do you think that is?
I think it's well, it could be anywhere from the catalog that I had was from the 1920s. So I think they made these for quite some time. I don't know how long, if they made them through the 40s or 30s, but they definitely were advertising in fine gift shops in the 20s, early 20s.
So that didn't lock, so it's not like a Tantalus.
This one doesn't lock.
They were trying to keep people away from your
No, it's simply
or
something you'd have on your desk in your very fancy library, when your friend came to see, or after dinner, you might want to again, it's not this dissimilar from this because it is an amusement, you know. I mean, I think of it that way, which a lot of these things are, because not only do you get what you get a little drink, but you also get just the fun of operating with this and sort of the surprise of it. Then many books have that. There's kind of categories of ways in which these objects relate to real books. Humor, reference, you know, authority, all the genre of books, the subjects that books have. Like when you go to the bookstore and you see these objects have the same, you know, like history, fiction, cooking. There's really no genre of life that there hasn't been some book object that relates to it. I've been looking for all, you know, and even when I don't find something, I sometimes just think about what area of life haven't I thought of looking to see if there is a book related to it, you know, and that's how I've found many things, because I'll like find the expert. My favorite one was when I had a sense that the world of magic, I already knew a lot about novelties, but I had a sense that the world of magic had, when I say it had books associated with it, I mean real genres that perpetuated over time. So I would interview magicians, which was really fun. So I kind of have done that all through my collecting career, find an expert in a field if I haven't found an object, and I'll ask them, can you think of any like book-related object that has popped up in your collecting or in your practice? And that's how I've like kind of gotten, sometimes it's chance that I found things, and sometimes it's I've proactively looked for people who might know. Okay, so this is something that I have never shown to anyone before because it is just so somehow, I never really appreciated it until now. It was probably an impulse purchase, that's what I'm thinking, because while it's very bookish, it doesn't have a spine title, which somehow would offend me. I don't know why. But it does have a really wonderful gold stamped cover, and it's emulating a cushioned leather binding, which is the kind of binding you would normally see on some reference books, a Bible, more like a diary. You might be familiar with them. And it does have gold.
What's the name of the piece?
It's called Natural Elegance.
Oh, of course.
And all of the edges are gold, as you can see. And they do have lines inscribed to look like a book edge, pages. And so it is trying to be it's kind of missing the mark a bit, which is maybe why it irritates me. Somehow there's things that stand out as being like, what kind of book is that trying to be? But it's also something that could have been partially made by, I mean, when I'm studying these things, sometimes I think, did a bookbinder make this, or parts of this? Was a bookbinder, a real commercial bookbinder, commissioned to make part of this object? And in some cases I can prove that to be true. This is almost tempting, but I don't know. And I haven't ever thought about it more than 2 seconds before. And it's called Natural Leaf Coaster Mixer Ensemble. And service for 8. I don't see a date. It is patent. Well, it's patent pending. So it's possible I could find a patent for it, which I have never looked for previously. It has looks to be a cloth hinge, you know, and lovely end paper. Inside we have 8 plastic leaf coasters, unstamped. I mean, it's stamped with a leaf texture, but not any kind of notation of where it might have, anything about it, no numbers or anything. The company is called J&S Creations Incorporated. Then it also has 8 plastic swizzle sticks. Never used it. I wouldn't use it. I don't know if it's ever been used. Possibly.
So it has to be from some cocktail age, which means it
50s.
Yeah, probably. With the
early
plastic.
Early 50s. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a cocktail. One of the cocktail. There are many cocktail-related objects in book form. Coasters. A lot of coasters. A lot of book coasters.
How about, what are the salt and pepper shakers?
Okay, I have a large collection of salt and pepper shakers, and I only took these two out for a crazy reason that amuses me to no end. They're called Spice of Life, Salt and Pepper, Volume 1. Volume 2, Salt is always Volume 1 because salt is somehow more important than pepper. Made in Canada in 1950. They are dated, and the publisher is HLK Company. So they're Canadian souvenirs. I have other ones that have the same leather souvenir patch, but from a different town from a different town, but Canada. And they're big, heavy books, and if you can get close, you will see that they literally have cloth end bands like real books have. And this is practically the only book that I know that has that. They really thought enough to put end bands on the books, which are completely unnecessary. But they tell you something about how they feel about books. So how I feel about these is they are one of a number of objects that I have that have shown to me that the Canadians seem to care more deeply about the physical book and bookbinding design. Because when I find objects that are Canadian, they pretty much consistently have a lot more bookish details that are accurate than other books. And that's a general statement, and it's just my experience of looking at a lot of books. And I'm always wondering, and maybe because they have such a deep history with Britain, and Britain has a very strong connection to hand bookbinding, but like to them, it's not a book unless it has a headband. So even if it's a salt shaker, they're going to put a headband on there, and I just think that's really wonderful. Also, the rounding, the shape of the book, there's the way the covers are made, the details that they put on the spine. All those things show me that they care deeply that it's really a real book. It's as close to a real book as they can get it. And not everybody does that. Very often people don't do that. They just take general motifs from books and they repeat them, and they don't really care that much if it's like accurate to a real book. Because bookbinding, historic bookbindings in all cultures, in all countries, and periods of time, have very specific design elements that are characteristic to that place and time. And by that I mean the types of end bands, the type of clasp, the shape of the book, the proportions of the book, how the decoration is laid out on the book, all those things. Like, you could date a book and place a book sometimes just by those things, even if it doesn't have anything written on it, because it's sort of like from that place.
And also for the cost of having somebody producing those salt and pepper shakers.
It costs more.
It would cost more. So their attention to that kind of detail.
I have other things too that are like that from Canada, that it's like, wow, they really included every little detail that's telling you that is a real book. And it's baffling and wonderful to me. I'm so grateful that they do that, because I love that there's a culture that really cares about that,
And as a collector, do they actually cost more because they have that detail?
Nobody notices. I only notice because I'm a bookbinder. When I look at it, and it's like, when I look, for example, like if, I don't know if I have anything here, or there's other book objects, like this one, it really irritated me, because like, why didn't they put the title on the spine? That would have made it more authentic. It would have told you that this is really a book. You would store it on the shelf like this, and it's got everything else. It's got the cloth. They put a lot of attention on the pages. But they were too stingy to put a spine title on there, and it didn't matter to them, which is somehow offensive to me, which is somehow probably why I never showed it to anybody before. So, go figure. And both of these things are kind of hideous. I mean, it's not like you would be, dying to have this or anything. It's just like a bookbinding fun fact, And as I said, personally, my feeling about books is very detailed and very personal, and I notice all the aspects of real books, and if the binder did them right, if the binder did them wrong, if it's trying to be something other than it is it, where was this binder from? So when I look at the books, I think about the same things.
So can you tell me generally, just based on the objects that are on the table, what those objects, without going into great detail yet about them, what their intention was, just kind of starting maybe with the apple and...
Okay, that's a cookie jar again from probably the 60s. I'm guessing. I haven't dated it. But I would put this in the genre of school. So public education, I think, began around the 1860s, and from that point, there are a lot of book objects that were made relating to school, including lunch boxes, pencil cases, and here we go, like 100 years later, and somebody's still making them. And they made a cookie jar, and this one's sending a message to the kids. Good cookies for smart cookies. So if you do well in school, and I love the title, because if you're doing well, you can have a cookie. It's definitely a rewards cookie jar, as opposed to...
And it's ceramic.
It's ceramic. I'm so grateful I haven't broken it, because I can be...
We are too.
It would be... It's in perfect condition, and it could easily...
Checking for cookies.
It could easily chip, and I'm so happy that I have this, like... It helps when you have kind of kitschy things if they're in perfect condition, because somehow it helps people see it more. I don't know why.
So you don't have a category for your Blooks that is kitsch?
Well, the kitsch factor is very prevalent in certain time periods. So yes, I don't call it kitsch because usually my categories relate to the purpose and use of the object.
Okay.
So is it for I'm changing my categories a little bit, but when I think of my categories, I think of broad themes like love and friendship, religion, entertainment, But there are, like in this area, their kitsch starts way back, but there's a lot of heavy, intense kitsch, as you know, in the 50s, 60s, 70s till now. Like here's one, can I show it to you? It's like one of my favorite ones because it is so hideous and wonderful. It's like the so bad it's good category. Well, there are many books that relate to cookbooks or recipe tins, and the cookbook title is applied to many kinds of objects. I have several objects on this table that are called cookbook. This one is Salt and Pepper Cookbook, a spicy story in 2 parts. So it's a set. It's a set of 2. And when you open it, and it's a great contraption. I love packaging, book packaging. And here's a good example of one. It's these really horrible, because I'm putting a label on it, maybe they're wonderful. They could be both. Well, if we started chronologically, we have to see this. One of the treasures in my collection is this biscuit box. And it's silver plate. It's probably 1870s, 80s, 90s. I tried to attribute it. I had some ideas about it. I think I took some notes and put it on a piece of paper. Maybe it's inside. I do think that this one, I have seen pictures of other ones online, and that look, everything about it is very similar except for the cover. And I think my speculation is that this was a model, because the other ones are actually designed like a book binding with a spine and corners. This one, the cover has nothing to do with the book binding. It's made up of 3 pieces of sample silver with sample patterns with numbers, meaning like something that would be in a catalog or that you could choose your millwork, you could choose your design from. So I feel like it's the artist is maybe working out their issues on this one, which would be really amazing. When you open it, it's gold plated, I guess, or I don't know. I haven't studied it in that much detail. Oh, I don't have my paper in there anymore that had my notes. But you can imagine what the tea set must have looked like if this was the biscuit box. It's just so luxurious and wonderful. It's British, and I was so excited to get it. It's not signed at all, so that is a great one, really special. Then there are quite a few bookish napkin rings, which brings us back to education and school and showing how smart you are or how much you love books, because this one obviously is modeled on Kate Greenaway, and I call this a double book because you have someone reading a book on top of a book. sometimes you get books inside of books inside of books. And there are others. I didn't bring all the ones I had down, or all the ones I've seen I don't have. So I think those are really wonderful. I would have loved to have that.
And how do they go together?
They're just solid. They're napkin rings, so the napkins go through.
Oh, so each one is an individual.
Each one is an individual napkin ring for a cloth napkin.
So they're unrelated other than their function.
Right. They're not a set. They're different ones. Different. So that's interesting to me when you see, like, that shows you there were a lot of these made.
Well, I mean, napkin rings, usually there's like more than one of them.
Right, somebody,
But it should be like a set of 12.
There are sets, but very often also there are personal napkin rings that people have that it's about their interest or their hobby or who they are. So I think it might have gone both ways. That there were sets and personal variations. Based on my observation, I haven't studied the history of napkin rings intensely. Well, that's another reason why I love this subject. It could go on forever, like what you can study. There's so many subjects represented.
And show us something else.
Okay. This is one I was surprised. Well, this was a mystery object for a long time until I started, again, Canada. Although, I need to talk to somebody about these in Canada, but it's a maple sugar mold. In the era before refrigeration, maple sugar was the most common way of storing and preserving maple sugar. And they had maple sugar molds to make beautiful cakes of maple sugar, like people bring back from Canada when they're having a souvenir. And I started seeing, I have 3 of them from feel like they're from different time periods that went on for a while, because some I don't know, they're all handmade. And they have different ways of keeping the molds together, these clamping mechanisms. Some of them have pins. They're always Bibles. And I wondered for a long time, why do they need maple sugar Bibles? And I'm still learning about that. I believe, it's a Catholic. Until I found this one, actually. This one helped me kind of understand. I feel like it did, but, this is all still speculation.
How do you know it's a Bible?
Because of the crosses, and I've had people look at it, and they've explained it to me, what kinds of crosses they are. And on the spine, the other ones I have raised bands on the spine, like you would see a raised band on a book. But when I found this one, it says R.I.P. And either that's somebody's initials or this was for a funeral party.
So the actual book would have been the maple sugar?
A little Bible with R.I.P. on the spine.
But made out of maple sugar?
Made out of maple sugar. Huh. Like a little pat of butter, when you get the European butters and it's sort of a little pound of butter or whatever. It's crazy, and it's a genre. If I have 3 of them, there's millions of them out there. Not millions, but
so somebody really thought that through to the end product.
Yes, and again, it's Canadian. There are these kinds of primitive wooden objects made throughout the United States in the logging areas and Canada, but these aren't. Everyone has said they're not American, that they're Canadian, whereas the spruce gum boxes, which I didn't bring one out to show you, which the lumbermen made in while they were in the woods for a long time. The lumbermen made these beautiful book boxes that they carved out of softwood, and they collected spruce gum from the trees while they were there and made these lovely boxes for often their love gifts. But this is similar but something different. Similar in material and time period, but a different function. Well, it's holding food. It is the food in this case. So that's one mold. The book molds, there are a lot of book molds. There's book cake molds, there's book candy molds, there's a book ice cream mold, which I brought, I can show you. Here's a book, Ice Cream Mold from the 19th century, made by the Epplesheimer Company. It's very attributable. It's got a number, and it's real, again, a lot of detail. It has very pronounced end bands and the leather texture on the spine and the two raised bands. It's trying hard, and the pages along, you can see the pages. It's got a lot of detail. It's not just general book. It's very specific, kind of fine binding, you know. It's trying to be a leather binding, obviously. And the outside looks like this.
And do you know about the company?
I don't know a lot about Epplesheimer, but there's some things about it online that I've learned. I have a label for it over there. It's in my first book, so I've written a bit about it, but I just don't really remember what I wrote. Here's the label from it. Ice Cream Mold, Epplesheimer and Company, New York, number 957, 1888, around 1888. Epplesheimer Company was one of the largest mold-making firms in the U.S. from the late 19th century through the 1940s. Produced thousands of figurative molds which sold to retailers such as bakers, confectioners, and caterers.
Awesome.
That's what I know about it.
While you're at it, why don't you wave your book about Blooks at us?
Okay. Well, about that too, I also learned that came in two sizes. That's the individual size, but they also had a party size.
That was one of my questions about it.
And I've never seen it. I'm so waiting for that's on the wish list. I don't know if it exists. I do have a really big commercial cake mold. This is a company that was in competition with a lot of other salt companies in Kansas. And so they decided to make their advertising like it's the authoritative salt, it's a cookbook salt. And they also made needle cake books that they gave to people. I found that. Isn't that amazing? Now, when you can find an old package, it's just so rare that it exists. And this one was from the Barton Salt Company in Hutchinson, Kansas, and they decided to title their salt cookbook Salt because and make it sort of a reference book, or it's a cookbook. The fact that it has a book package makes it authoritative and important alone, and distinguishes it from other generic designed salt boxes, in my opinion. And I really love the design of it, and I'm so grateful that someone saved it. One, because I would have tossed this one in the trash as soon as I used it, if it was me probably. But then, after I found this much later, I found that they had done a little needle book with the same binding. And so this has a device that I love. There's many, many graphics that are books, like printed flat things like greeting cards, postcards, posters, printed textiles. And what they're doing is they're making some little thin, flat thing look like a big, important, three-dimensional book. And that gives a lot of clout to the design alone. And I love that device about these kinds of books and that kind of image. I see it on many, many things, but it's a good example of it. I liked it so much that I used it for the cover of my exhibition catalog. And when you open it, it's a little needle book, promotional needle book, which so many companies gave out to women for better flavored foods. Insist on cookbook salt, the salt of superior quality. The back, it's a full binding. It's got it all. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
So that's exactly what I did with my book. It impressed me when I did.
Let's see
when I made my book.
Yes.
Because it shows I'm taking my little catalog, and now it's a big, thick, important tome, you know, and that's what I was going for. There are many, many candy boxes in the form of books produced. I mean, I've seen them since, you know, the turn of the 20th century. There might be some earlier. There are some earlier. Probably 19th century till today. They're still using a lot of books for packaging of candy. But I particularly love this one, I'm Scotch by Reed, because it's emulating a sort of a genealogical, you know, treatise on a Scottish heritage. And it's anthropomorphic, like it thinks it's alive, which is just so crazy. I don't know any other book that like thinks it's really a person. Even the title, I'm Scotch by Reed, and it has this really wonderful title page And it has the publisher is the Reed Candy Company. I mean, they're taking it really seriously, and I'm so happy about that. But in addition to that, it has this crazy, I filled it up here just with some paper so it won't collapse. It has this very funny preface where it tells you as a human why it's so important and why you should have it. Very few books
What
have
was in it?
butterscotch. I could read it if you want me to read it, but yes, I'm Scotch. I live in cellophane wrappers, go around in plaids, and am seen in all the smart places. I've been collected as a rare edition and toasted as a rare treat. Once you take me in, you'll soon discover what rare Scotch I am. Goes on and on and on about how it's so amazing.
Have you ever actually found something inside a book that they didn't consume?
I love those. I love kits that have all their pieces and boxes that still have all their stuff inside. And if someone gives me a box of candy in a book box, I try not to eat it, but I usually fail. But because I can't read. So yeah, it matters.
Well, let's do that one.
Oh, this is one of my very first books that I ever bought. This one and a wax book. This one my boyfriend at the time, John, bought for me at Newmarket, Maryland, when I think I was visiting my mother. And it was a wonderful little town that had a lot of antique shops. And this was like the first antique book that I ever saw, this one with its accompanying wax book that I bought. And I was like shocked by how incredible it was, or that it existed. And I believe it's upside down. And it's a lunchbox from the 19th century. And it's called Noonday Exercises. And I've seen a pencil box that may have been made by the same people or company. It's also tin and printed with that title in a similar way. And I have another lunchbox where all the enamel is worn off. It's the same, so it wasn't a one-off thing. It opens from here, and believe it or not, and I found the patent. Since I've had this, I found the patent for it, and it's really, they must have made a lot of them. It's got gold edges. The top slides open, and inside is thermos, the beverage, the half circle beverage container. Now in the patent, so this might have been a knockoff unless they improved their design. In the patent, the bottle was totally round, and inside the box, it had the converse of the round shape. So this could have been an improvement, so that you would have more room in the box for your lunch, and maybe you didn't need so much to drink, I don't know. Or it could have been a different company other than who was in the patent. But I just think it's such a really interesting, wonderful design. And it's the earliest of, I believe, of the lunch boxes I have. I have a lot of lunch boxes. I still collect lunch boxes. They still make book-shaped lunch boxes. Some of them are more embossed steel, that have a pattern, like a bookbinding, like a shape, a little bit of a bookbinding suggestion. Textures, yeah, there's quite a few that were made in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and then now, there's still a lot. And then here's a Japanese one that I have that is so proud to be a book that the advertising says it's the book bento over and over again everywhere they could possibly say it. And then I've seen a number of these different designs of the book bento. And of course, this is the spine on this side because Japanese books open opposite to how our books open. So the spine would be on the right. And when you open it, you can read it, company. And one of the cool things about it is that the spine comes off, and in the spine are the chopsticks. See, the chopsticks are kept in the spine. So very often in these objects, especially these commercial objects, the round spine of the book is actually used as a convenient part of the design to hold something. So for example, in my candle lantern, the round spine holds the candle. In this case, the round spine holds the chopsticks. So they're practical.
What else relates to dining that you want to talk about? Well, okay.
One that I was looking for, there was a children's set of spoons, but I did find Neptune's Armory, which is British, and I've seen these very similar sets of flatware in like this, and I don't know if they're all made from the Trident company, but they look like this. They have a title and they have a spine, and for holding kind of nice special flatware. Whoops, see, I told you, I was amazed that it wasn't broken yet. I just bumped it. So it has also a patent, a British patent, and I think it might be a fish set, or I don't know. What do you think? And it has 2 layers. It has forks and knives. Or maybe it's just dinner for.
Is that Bakelite or ivory or?
I think if it's bone, it could be bone. It has a crack, like hard to say right now. I never really studied. Maybe it's Bakelite. I don't know. Often they're bone, but I don't know. I'm not sure about this one. So I think that's kind of cool. Like, I would be really happy if somebody gave me that. Silver, yeah. If I had to pick one, like, of the best book on the planet for some reason, it would have to be, it might be the Chef Annette, because I really hate favorites. But I'm so amused by Chef Annette's, just the name is so great. I mean, Chef Annette, it's of its period, the 50s, but actually it was invented in the 1930s, the late 1930s, by a woman named Hazel Terry. And in her first patent, she refers to the Chef Annette. The title of the patent is Reference Device. And this isn't the early one, this is a later one. The earlier ones had, this was such a popular object that it was popular probably from when she invented it, all the way through the 50s. And I've seen it in brides magazines, and through the whole time that it was being sold, the design changed continuously. Like, there are many, many variants of it, of the bookcase, of the design of the books, of the amount of books on the shelf. There were 3, 5, and 7 volume sets. The bookshelves, the designs of the bookshelves and the books changed with the fashion of the time, there are quite a few of them out there, so they must have been very popular. They hung on the wall. They had 2 little things you could have it on a table, but they also have hangers on the back where you could, put them on over 2 screws and have it on the wall. And they came with, for the new young housewife that may not have starter recipes, it came with cards and recipes that you could order from the company, so you could buy it full of cards or you could buy it by itself. And very few of the ones that I have or seen, I have a lot of them, so I guess that is an area where I collect somewhat in depth, because I have 2 other ones that have completely different styles of binding than this one, and also different bookends. For example, here's not the earliest one, but it looks like the one in the patent, actually. So the books are the same, I think, although I have one. No, the books, there's another patent that has a cutout in here. I have it, but it's so gross looking. And the title was in paper. And they quickly realized that didn't hold up and it didn't look good, so they
So
made them.
what's its function?
Okay, so they're recipe tins.
Oh.
There's a piece of metal that goes through all the way through the front, and the books pivot off. If you had this on the wall, it would be doing this. The books pivot off of that rod, and then they have the different subjects. But what is so amazing about this particular one that I love so much is that it's a great example of how another way in which we've always used personal books, and that is to hide things inside of our books. So you might find a flower, a 4-leaf clover, a lock of hair In this case, I found, well, I was so happy that it was full of recipes, which is, it's like as it was. But I also found a letter inside, which I have shared with others in my exhibitions that I've had, dated 1957 from Los Angeles to a Mrs. Schultz, signed an interested party, which is criticizing her for her bad behavior. And it's really hard to tell what she did that was so bad. I feel like she was maybe a gossip or something.
What's the date
and it warned her that this was just the first of many letters. Like, this is just one of, like, telling to she was going to be getting. And she saved it. And, of course, she put it in her chiffonette, which her husband was never going to be digging into. So, and nobody would be looking into it but her.
Does it have a date on it?
1957. So... I mean, that's I just love that, because that's yet another, it's like a full book use. It's the reference work, it's a reference set. It's going to help you live your life correctly. It's got everything you need to know. I mean, it's really a reference book. And it's a personal, and you can hide your stuff in it. So it's just so bookish to me. And I'm wondering if Hazel Terry might have been a librarian. I don't know. I didn't do a lot of research into her life. She has 2 pens on changes of these that I found so far. This is one of those examples where you wish you could call somebody up and say, what were you thinking? But it came in many colors: red bookshelves, green bookshelves. I've seen them in other people's places. I don't have all of them. Here's another one with the 3-volume with a different design. It's got a lot of dust on it, sorry. This one. But I have like 2 or 3 more. I went a little crazy with the chiffonette.
Mm-hmm. People that collect things obsessively and have, the most intriguing collections, they want their collections, of course, to stay intact and have their name attached to it for posterity or something. Do you have, this is kind of a far-fetched question, but not really, since you work in a museum, do you have an idea or a plan about where your collection would be best cared for and for posterity?
Difficult. My energy right now is being put into creating the best collection that I know I can be made that illustrates this subject, and then generating interest in the subject, educating rare book librarians and art historians, book artists, people who teach the subject, because the other aspect, beyond the academic aspect of the collection, is the aspect that relates to book arts, because all these objects have really interesting physical structures that would really lend themselves beautifully to the work that book artists are doing. So if the book artists knew what these structures were, had opportunity to see them in action, or through learning and workshops, then they want to make them. So those are the 2 categories of people that I'm interested in inspiring generally through this collection, scholars and artists.
Well, I want to thank everyone for attending, and thank Mindy for just a splendid, brief glimpse into your collection. And I think we've kind of woven the Q&A part, the questions and answers, into the entire interview here. And I want to thank you very much, Mindy, for sharing your collection with us, and wish to have a volume 2 of this interview at another point in the future. Hi, everybody. Thank you for staying with us. We do have Mindy here. I don't know that we can hear her, but she will answer questions in the chat. So I hope you found that as engaging as I did. At the beginning, we thought we weren't going to have Mindy present, so we kind of did the format as a Q&A with me asking the questions. So if you have questions and you want to put them in the chat, we will. Mindy, I think, can answer them through the chat.
I can. Can you hear me?
We can. It's a miracle.
Okay.
Mindy.
I don't know if you
Thank
can
you
hear me
so
through my
much.
computer.
Yeah, thank you, Mindy. That was
Is that
really
working?
wonderful. I love your whole presentation and all about your obsession with Blooks. And I think, do people have questions that are with us? I know we went a little long here, and I apologize for that.
Thank you for the thank yous.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add? I do want volume 2 sometime, so we can do that.
I would love to do volume 2. Um,
Have you acquired anything since March?
have I? Oh, I got a really great, my gag book collection.
Yes.
I got an amazing punchline book that I had never seen before. And I don't know if it ever went into production because in it I found a letter from the Fish Love Company to the person who pitched the idea for the punchline book, and told him how much money they were going to give him, $35 to pay him for his idea. And up until that point, I didn't know that these companies actually got the ideas for their products from the public. They must have advertised like in the back of comic books or something, for people to
Matchbook covers or
send
something.
in their ideas. And just having the stationery, from the company, was really wonderful. So that was a good find. And of course, I showed you my stone books that Maggie and Ian Burke gave me, which are mind blowing and incredible. And these beautiful 19th century stone books. 4 of them are love tokens, which, I had an exhibition of these at the San Francisco Center for the Book, and there is a catalog. So if anybody wants to know more about them, you can ask
So
me.
were the stone books related to tombstones in some way?
Well, no, they were. There are memorials. But there were love tokens and commemorative objects of important historic events like battles, or sometimes they were a memento from a place because there are certain stones that are associated with certain areas of the country. Many of them were American. Most of that collection is American. Such as pipestone or catlinite from Minnesota. There were only 2 places that stone occurred. Or, there was, so some of these these places that were soldiers' rest homes made stone books. There's just so many different kinds of stone books that you would never know unless you saw them. You couldn't have imagined. And some of the depth and the detail there's a really wide range of detail and size. So it's not all one thing.
And how many different countries made Blooks? I mean, just in general.
Well, they were made in America. A lot from Italy. A lot of them were Grand Tour souvenirs. I have an alabaster one with images in it behind glass. Greece, I've seen. I think Ian had a Greek one on his. Ian had an amazing website. I don't know if it's still accessible. Maybe he had like 270 books on it. He had 500. Or over 500 in his collection, but he made a big effort to get them up online. It was called American, I believe it was American Stone Books. I can let Bill know. Try to find out. Maggie, I think, is in this audience. She could maybe put it in the chat. So definitely Italy, definitely Greece. Oh, I have an Arabic one, and I don't know where it's from, but it's in Arabic. I've seen Japanese ones. I've seen Asian ones. I have a Russian one that's someone gave me. That's a modern one. There's just a lot. It's you'd be surprised how many there are.
So there are a few questions in the chat.
Okay, look.
What was your first to get you started collecting?
The first object or the
Yeah,
first?
what was the first book?
It was, of course, the object that made me collect in the first place. I featured it in my book. Was this? I was in the flea market on 25th Street, Manhattan, and do you remember that was in the parking lot? And there was a photo dealer, and on the table there was a book made out of anthracite coal, a tiny little book that would fit in the palm of my hand. And on the front of the book, it had the man's name, J.F. Fagan, assuming it was a man, his birth date, and 1870 something. And on the back, it was his death date, and he was 21 when he died, and it was Valentine's Day. So this object, when I held it in my hand, I was literally transported to his graveside in my mind. And I felt like his friend. I felt like he died in a mine accident, and that his wife was there and his friend was there, and his friend made this book and gave it to his wife. This is all going on in my head. And I was like, wow, how could I just hold it? And it was a prayer book. It had the most detailed, tiny little details of a prayer book, like beveled edges and a 4-edge clasp. Just, coal isn't easy to carve. It's very brittle. But anyway, I had it for a long time, but I was so impressed by how it made me feel. And just because of that it was the form of a book and the holding of it in my hand and the material that it was made of, it just had a lot of power. And before I had my exhibition, and that's what made me realize that the shape of the book alone has a lot of power, and that idea needed to be explored. But before I had my exhibition, I contacted the Anthracite Museum in Scranton, Pennsylvania, because I had been there when I had a show of another artist that I wrote her biography of, Alice C. Morse, who lived in Scranton. And I had a show at the University of Scranton. And this girl answers the phone at the coal museum, Anthracite Museum. And I tried telling her about this little coal book, and then I needed to find out if what I thought about it was true. And could she find out what happened to this person? Well, I work in a library, and I know the librarians, we do not do research for people. They have to get their butt in there and do it themselves. But I wasn't going to Scranton, so I asked her. And she says to me, I know exactly who you are because when I was a college student, I installed your show. And I'm going to find out for you. And then she found these books. Well, when anybody died in the mine, there was a book each year for all the miners or all the miners who died in the mine. So I had the date and I had his name, not his whole name, but I had his initials and his name. And so she was able to locate him and find out what happened to him and what mine he worked in and about his family. And so I did learn, and I was right. So, he was crushed between the tender, the train, the coal train. So, I mean,
What happened to the book?
I have it. It's in my.
Oh, you still have it. Okay.
Of course, it's getting buried with me. I mean, I'm never getting rid of that one. That's my very favorite.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it was still with you and you hadn't given it to the Anthracite.
Not giving it away. I'm attached to it, but I mean, maybe someday I'll change my mind. I have other cold books. I have maybe four or five other cold books. Cold books are rare, but they pop every so often. I mean, first of all, they're brittle. I'm sure a lot of them broke. I have a broken one. Someone I know actually broke it. But yeah, they're all very, I mean, some of them are quite beautifully illustrated and detailed, but it's usually a very fine line and inscribed. There's not much you can do with coal for texture because it's just so brittle. So you either see very thin lines or you see this little kind of like a stippling.
I think there's some other questions too, Bill, are there?
Yeah, here's one that question has to do with contemporary artists who work with book motifs, but are excluded from this kind of collection. Thinking of contemporary artists like
collect some
Richard
contemporary
Shaw.
art. I do collect some contemporary books. I have, but they're not in the cooking area. I mean, I have many subjects. So I mean, maybe I could walk over to my cabinet. But I do collect. I mean, I don't have an unlimited budget. If anybody wants to contribute, you are welcome. I do get a lot of gifts from people, but I try to space it out so that I can like fill in my blanks, which is what I'm doing now, trying to fill in my blanks. But if I see something I really love and can afford that's contemporary, I will get it because I just love any kind of look. Sculptures, reliefs, needle points. I mean, I have one of my craziest book is this crazy three-dimensional needlepoint of a Bible with three-dimensional flowers coming out of it. It's just so crazy. I love it. But yeah, I love there's an artist that I saw that I missed one who she was from Iowa, I think, who sculpts. She only sculpts, what was it? It was a whistle. She only sculpts whistles, and she had a book that was a whistle. Should have gotten it. Missed that one. Can't get them all.
I think the question in the Zoom had to do with Richard Shaw, so a ceramic artist.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
It's kind of trompe-l'oeil sorts of look things.
I don't know.
Okay, I mentioned Richard Shaw and then a potter Dan Finnegan, and then another
Write it
contemporary
down,
artist,
or
Eric
somebody
Aho.
should email me.
Yeah, I'll email you it.
Yeah, I'm very interested.
Yeah, there's a couple people you ought to you ought to look at when you're looking at things. Somebody also wants to know, since I
I'm
think
going to
it's
show you one of my stone books because I took the others upstairs, but I have this one here, so I can show
okay.
it to you. Because if I can turn the picture thing around, I don't know if I could turn it around. Can you see this?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Isn't
that's
that
beautiful.
amazing? Can you see the?
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
So it's an amazing one. That was definitely a professional carver. What
So
was the
somebody wants
question?
to know what your smallest book is and your largest.
Well, I have ones that are smaller than your pinky fingernail because I have little necklaces, lockets.
Oh,
Actually, the Met produced a book locket last year, and I always work closely with retail, and she gave me one, and it's like not even a quarter. It's a quarter of an inch. So I would say jewelry is the smallest, and the biggest that I have.
hmm
I don't have a lot of giant ones because I like the ones the most that are actually the shape of real books, you know?
right.
So, probably my big commercial cake pan, it might be the biggest one that I have. I have a cake pan like from Troy, New York, from a bakery which I was able to attribute it to. And I called the woman who was the daughter of the baker, and she told me, well, they were for graduations and big because they made a lot of graduation cakes and I guess bar mitzvahs and things like that. They like book cakes.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. So I think we're going to have to wrap up pretty soon and really do a volume 2 of this sometime, which will
Well,
make
I
sure we
have
got
the
all the
book here.
kinks worked out. So,
I'm a member of the Elmendorf Spinners group, which is up here where I live. It's in Red Hook, and I'm going to put together a show for them similar to this, but in person of all my needlework related books because those
oh,
are
wow.
cool. But I would be happy to do another one on food because there's a lot of things that I did not show you if it's of interest.
It's contagious what you do since we met. I bought a couple of books. One of them is nothing like the great one you have with the flask at the end of the book, but a lunchbox from the late 1800s. It's pretty
Yeah,
beat up, but I had to get it.
you have to get it. You got to have it. One of my favorite ones is this one. I'll see if I can show it to you. It's a towel. It's a tea towel from Australia. Can you see it?
Yeah, that's fabulous.
It's
Wow.
The Wonder
Wow.
Book of Australia, Volume 5. I love it when they have Volume 5 because it insinuates that there are at least 4 other volumes, which of course there weren't.
We'll watch for them.
But yeah, that gives it a lot of clout too. If it's a set or a series, it makes it even more important.
And so everybody in the chat, Bill has just put on there about the publications that Mindy's done and the CBS Sunday Morning tour of your Grow Your
Oh,
Club
thank you.
exhibition. So you can all click on those links and save that chat
Yeah. So
and
I do
enjoy
have
more.
copies of I do have copies of my book, my first book, the red and blue one. The Center for Book Arts just told me that they bought a printer and they're making more copies of the little catalog from my show last year, which was called The Best Kept Secret 200 Years of Blooks. And I really like that catalog because it's just beautifully designed and really adorable.
Oh, I need to see that.
Yeah, so they have copies of that now, which is good. And I think it was only originally it was only $30, which was good because each one they're making by hand. I mean, it's
Wow.
wacky. But I love that show. That was a really good show. If I do say so myself, but I mean, I really, that
We
was the
believe
last
you.
show I did. And it brought together like so many things for me that, everything kind of became clear to me about another reason why I love this subject, which was to me that because I was so busy explaining Blooks 101 to everyone that I never got to the point where I could really dig deep into the meaning of the book to the person who made it and the people who received them. And that's what I started thinking about a lot more in that show and lately. More about the context as opposed to just explaining it, where so
Well,
That's the fun part.
Mindy, I think we're going to wrap it up tonight. And
Okay.
we're so appreciative. We're glad that your audio worked, and we're so appreciative. I loved every moment. I could watch this 100 times, and maybe I will.
The internet.
So I want to thank you, everybody, for being with us this evening. And watch. You will get the new and improved version of the video with the added addition of the Q&A at the end here live with Mindy. And thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.